to our channel, I guess. Make sure we're heard. I'm wearing a hat because I didn't get a chance to clean up and shower.
That's okay.
I didn't get a chance to clean up and shower.
That's okay.
And all our audio is going through. That's good.
Docs. There we go. Okay.
Let me see here.
So just so you know, as far as the notes are concerned, under the tracking the numbers, I put the three that articles that I found that basically gave me the numbers, so that we'll have that. So
What?
On the notes, if you look down where it says tracking the numbers, there are three links. That's where I've gotten all our numbers.
Right.
Because one of the things I have found, unfortunately, is that a lot of states and the federal government has stopped tracking breakthroughs. So some of these numbers are as best they could calculate. That's the last one of that is from the Kaiser Institute. So that's the best that they have, and they show their work. So.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
What the hell is Incast Media Network? All these places. I'm supposed to be pimping everything. I'm just trying to get us some followers.
Next week, I was going to have us do it this week, but he is not on Twitch this week. I was going to have us, if we got anybody watching the show, I was going to have us raid the Hal Sparks feed after we were done. He is a comedian, political commentator, stuff like that. And if we raid him, it would,
I got a bunch of places I can pimp things, and I'm pimping things.
Okay.
Right now, well, a couple places. I know I have more, but I did 3. Trying to let people know, like, this channel needs followers. Like, we've got goals to meet, so that I'll do things like let us save video. I did post our streaming schedule.
Okay.
Something I've started doing for Grills too. So when people do go to our channel, they can see when we're on.
Okay, that's perfect.
Oh, did I screw up the time? I might have screwed up the time. I was so doing the other channel and going 8 o'clock. I might have said 8 instead of 7 for our shows, which will be a mistake. And I don't know that I can fix it right now. Meow, meow, meow. Did you share the socials?
I have. I shared earlier today. I will go ahead and do it now. Again, okay. Do this. Come on. All right, here we go. No, I need to do it the other way because for some reason Facebook gets weird. Come on, Daniel. You know how to do this.
What does our stream look like? Let me see. La la la. I have a cute hat from the Van Gogh exhibit, at least.
Oh, how was that?
Mess of a hair. I loved it.
I wanted to take Kelly to go see it, but unfortunately, I did not have the money. So,
Honey, you're breaking up. Like,
really?
it's a few words and then silence and a few words.
Okay, hold on a second.
I don't know if it's your signal or what's going on.
It shouldn't be my signal. I've got 100% on my signal. Can you hear me okay now?
I mean, I
Am I
can't tell
breaking?
until you use some complete
Well,
sentences.
okay. So let me see. So I'm going to say a few things and see if I'm still breaking up or not.
It's breaking up.
Oh God. Okay, let me try something.
Are
here.
you on auto detect for your voice or push
I
to
am
talk?
on auto detect for my voice.
I think that's what's happening.
Okay, so I'll change that. So input voice activity. How do I do? All right, trying this now with the push to talk. Does this work any better?
It's still hard to tell. I don't know.
Okay, I'll keep talking for a few moments. I'm doing the push to talk to see if this works. To see how it's going and see if everything's okay on this end. Still doing push to talk, push to talk, push to talk. Okay, so I've noticed something about the push to talk is that if I hold it for too long, it'll turn itself off.
Oh, that shouldn't happen.
I am using my iPad for this, so I'm going to figure out how to do that. Come on. All right, we're going to try it this way with me holding.
No, you're definitely just dropping off. I was like, try to maybe with me. Hold. I guess you can go back to voice activity, but you're going to have to speak loud and clear and make sure there's no other noises.
Okay, can you hear me okay? I'm going to try this again and see if we're breaking up now. I see a perfectly green line currently, and everything seems to be picking up fine with the sensitivity. Is this working fine, or is there too much background noise? Because there shouldn't be any background noise at all.
I don't hear any background noise, but you're stuttering out now and again. It's just breaking up.
All right. Okay. All right. So we're going with plan B. Hold on a second.
See, and then that was all fine talking. Weird.
Then I know what it is. I had it put. No, let's leave that alone. Close that. Okay. All right. Is this better now if I'm doing all of this right here? Is there any problems or anything like this? Are we hearing okay, not breaking up?
No, you're still breaking up.
What is going on? All right. Let's try this. All right. How's this? Let me try it from here because this is where you were not having any problems. So am I breaking up now? Am I having any problems?
Yes.
I'm still having problems. All right. So plan B goes into effect. All right. Hang up with me because I'm going to have to switch the computer and see if that's any better.
Okay.
All right. Give me just a second. I just have to switch and put on my microphone.
Okay.
1 second.
I'm sorry, everybody. That's some craziness. All the technical issues are Apple's fault right now. It's making me mad. New folder, maybe. should probably try to call Daniel back.
I'm switching to computer, so give me a few moments. It's doing the update, so hold on a second. All right, I'm going to close this out, and I'll call you.
Hello.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can.
All right, hold on. Let me turn this up here. Give me 1 second here. Up, there we go with that. I am turning this up and seeing how am I breaking up any or at all?
What?
Am I breaking up?
Yeah, in that you said I am turning this up and all.
Okay, so one, I'm going to say my ABCs. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z.
Yeah, I heard A, F, G, like it was skipping a couple throughout the alphabet.
Oh, great. This is not working. What is going on today? Really? Because we didn't have a problem with the iPad last week. So I'm wondering why I'm having a problem this week with it.
Are you using Wi-Fi or are you using cell signal?
Well, I can only use Wi-Fi when I'm using the iPad. And I used Wi-Fi
That's
last
not
week
an
and it was
answer.
perfectly fine.
Depending what kind of iPad, you can use either type of signal, dear.
I mean, it's an iPad Air.
Okay, you have the one that so it's using Wi-Fi.
Yes, it can only use Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm not. Okay, it's using Wi-Fi. It's not using the cell signal, correct? And I've got like full Wi-Fi, so that's what the problem is. So I switched the computer because I'm like, okay, why is that not working this time? And my computer is plugged. And you're saying I'm breaking up.
Mm-hmm. Am I breaking up for you at all?
No, you are not breaking up for me at all.
Well,
I hear you perfectly fine.
I mean, we could.
Let's see what I sound like through the test and see what I sound like through the speakers and see if that's fine. If that's fine, then it's just like through the test and see what I sound like through the speakers and see if that's fine. If that's fine, then it's just like through the test.
Yeah, I heard myself perfectly fine. So obviously it's picking up on the recording. It's just for whatever reason you are hearing me break up. Now I can't hear you. Oh, there
Well,
you go.
because I'm not saying anything.
Oh, okay.
And you seem to have stopped breaking up.
Of course I have. I'll only break up when we're actually doing the show.
I guess we'll find out. I'm going to hit
I
record.
guess we will find out. All
Let's
right.
just do this thing and do the best we can. That's all we
Do
can
the best we
be
can, and I'll
expected
try to
do.
figure out what the going on. All right. See, we don't have bumpers. Give me a countdown.
Woo! I moved our background. Okay, 3, 2, 1.
As of August 5th, 2021, 630,947 Americans have died of COVID-19. 95% of new cases and 99.90% of deaths are unvaccinated.
As of August 5th, 2021, 630,947 Americans have died of COVID 19. 95% of new cases and 99.9% of deaths are of the unvaccinated. Let's talk about COVID 19 and where we are.
Welcome to Heresy and Hearsay, a podcast reclaiming faith in the context of political discussions. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me at Sethroth II on Twitter. You can also follow the show's Twitter. Just look for Heresy and Hearsay. Heresy and Hearsay has a Patreon site that you can find at patreon.com/heresy and hearsay, where you can find past shows and ways to help us. Just $2 a month goes a long way to helping us make this humble show. And with me this week, my co-host and this show's Major Margaret Houlihan, September.
Hi, I'm September, or 9 of 12, and you can follow me on Twitch or Twitter at 9 of 12. I'm also co-host of the Geek Grills podcast. Welcome to our Twitch channel, and you can contribute with bits in Twitch or subscribe for free if you have Amazon Prime here. You can follow the show on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and use any podcast catcher you like. Just look for Heresy and Hearsay. Now please like, share, follow, and subscribe to us. Also, give us a review in your podcatcher. That helps other people find us. We also have a website at heresyandhearsay.com where you can find all of our past shows and little bios about us.
So before we dip into this very not, depressing subject of COVID-19, I say with sarcasm, let's do our mental health check today. So what have you been doing to, I know that you've been a bit under the weather. What have you been doing to try to keep you up and motivated?
I slept a whole day. I mean, that kind of stunk. But other than that, yesterday I got up and I did a whole lot of catching up on errands and took the time to go get myself a pedicure.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, just go, not think about anything for a little while, not do anything for anyone else, just for a little while. And that does me a world of good, especially with they've got a massage chair I sit in, and with the ear infection I've got in my inner ear, it's got my neck hurting really bad too. And they just kind of give me a little relief and respite.
I understand that completely, especially with an ear infection that's hurting like that. A nice body massage, and especially a nice foot massage, because I'm pretty sure they also rub your feet while they're giving you the pedicure
Sure
and everything
do.
else.
It's like the best
I've
part.
never had a pedicure. It's just not something that's ever been in the cards. I may want to get one day. But
And then today I'm making my Papa's hot sauce, which is a wonderful little ritual and something I enjoy from my childhood that I only got the recipe down and given to me recently. Like last year was the first time I made it, so that's good for my soul.
I bet, and it's also probably very tasty on dishes too.
It's tasty on just about everything. I grew up with it like kind of instead of ketchup. It's like a sweet, hot chili sauce type thing.
Right.
We always just called it hot sauce, but it's yeah.
No, my father loved himself some hot sauce. Um, and unfortunately, my palate is so tender that I can't handle a whole lot of spice. I don't mind a little, but yeah. So yeah,
Yeah, this
I'm
is
glad that.
really balanced with the sweetness it has.
Okay. I may have to try some one day when I get a
Hmm.
chance to come up and visit again. Um, for me, I've been reading. Okay, so full confession here. I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for more years than I'd like to admit sometimes, and one of my favorite campaign settings was Dragonlance. Full disclosure, I had only read the first Dragonlance novel. I had not read any of the others. So I've made it my mission to finish. I reread Dragons of Autumn Twilight, and I'm working on the other two right now, so that I can complete the trilogy and feel much better about myself as a D&D nerd, saying, I have read these books finally. I now don't have to be in the cone of shame because I have not read those books. So, but it was my favorite, one of my favorite settings, but I just never read the books. I don't know what stopped me, but I just, I guess it's because I'd read other D&D books and some of them are not well written. And so I'm just like, but these are well written and I just should have given them more of a chance when I was younger, but I'm making up for it now.
I
So that's
enjoyed
what
a
I'm
lot of
doing.
them. I collected those. Let me see, from when I was like 19 to 22 or something. I collected them for a long time.
Well, I've got all of the I've got the trilogy, the major trilogy. Then I've got the trilogy of the twins. I mean, I've got a lot of the Dragonlance books. I've been reading other stuff and never got back to
It's a
them.
nice guilty pleasure to escape from the real world, for sure.
So before we start tonight's show, as always, Brother Bowie, will you lead us a word in prayer? Okay. So we are going to talk about COVID, and we are going to talk about um, COVID deaths and everything that's been going on, with, especially with the Delta variant. Um, because New York City just stated that to get into any bars or clubs or anything like that, you have to show proof of vaccination to do any indoor stuff. Um, and so that people who are unvaccinated are not allowed into like restaurants or anything like that. That just came down. Um, a lot of states are seeing a spike in their uh, COVID upticks. The spike is not, it's not just a minor spike, it's huge. I saw North Carolina, and North Carolina was not as bad as South Carolina, but both of them were not trending well at all. And there's a lot of states that are trending worse. Um, I don't, unless there's a state that, there's nobody around you for several hundred miles, otherwise known as Wyoming, this is not going well. And a lot of people are pointing to the unvaccinated for this. So let's talk about that. So when you hear that, when you hear that right now, there hasn't been a mask mandate in the state of North Carolina yet, but more likely that it's coming. And you're hearing that, a lot of people are, a lot of like groups and stuff that were planning on tours and stuff are having to possibly rethink about doing the rest of the tours or anything like that. What is your thoughts on that?
Okay, the last thing I heard from you was about canceling some tours, and it sounded like you were going to ask me a question about what I thought.
Yes, that is exactly what I did. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's really
oh
hard.
God, I've lost.
You're breaking up so bad for me. Like I can see you're going through to the stream, but I can't hear most of what you're saying for some
Oh,
reason over here. Um, so a few things I have to say. I spent a long time talking about COVID last night, actually, with some friends. One is works in emergency health services, and he was like, "Do you believe in masks?" I was like, "Yeah." And he got COVID while wearing a mask, and gave it to people in his family, and it passed around all over the place, and he got it while wearing a mask. I was like, well, I mean, yeah, but we're not having this discussion like, do I believe masks prevent 100% of infection? Like, no. It prevents a certain amount of spreading in one direction, a certain amount in another direction, and it's better than nothing. I mean, you can do everything right and still catch it. So why would you not do the best you can? The same with vaccination. And another friend of mine last night that he just got his first shot, and he had been resisting for a long time, and his reasons were very valid to him. He had had some really bad reactions to vaccines when he was in the military,
mhm.
and so I understand not wanting to, but I mean, he didn't have the kind of reaction that was going to kill him, and I thanked him very much for getting his shot last night, and I think he finally got it done because work made him, basically.
Mhm.
And I was like, listen, I want to thank you, and I want to let you know I've felt really awkward because, as we've been able to meet up in person, he's come to my house, like, and a couple times, like, he's given me a hug goodbye, and then I remembered, oh shit, he wasn't vaccinated. And I
Mhm.
stress out and worry about it for like days. And then he had to go home. His wife wasn't feeling well last night, and when he left, he was making the rounds, giving everyone hugs, and he waved at me. He said, "I'll hug you again when I get my second shot." And that he was like, he didn't get in my face. He wasn't disrespectful. He didn't act like I was being paranoid or stupid just because I had been worried about this. And I'm normally a very confrontational person, but I had seen enough people go at him that it wasn't going to change his mind. So I just, was handling it as I was handling it. So there are still people who's, for one motivation or another, it's sad that it takes, threatening their job, not threatening other people's lives to go get the damn shot.
Mhm.
The Delta variant being a weird thing. Like, we're all going to end up shut down again because people just won't go get a shot who can.
Right, and there are people that have legitimate concerns that are still
I
doing
had
everything
legitimate
else.
concerns, but I,
Hmm.
I risked it, and I could control a certain amount of the environment if I knew what I was getting into, and I'm so glad I did. Although I'm still scared with the variant out there. I mean, it's not a cure, but hardly anyone is dying of it that has a breakthrough infection, which is how they refer to people that get it even though they're vaccinated. It's just a lot less likely to kill you. I have concern that this inner ear thing I have going on might not be an actual infection. Inner ear infections are weird. They're often caused by viruses,
Right.
and with the kind of autoimmune diseases that I have, I get weird flare ups where things become inflamed after I contract a virus, even if I didn't have any symptoms of the virus.
No, and that is a legitimate concern, and I completely understand that. And uh, they're not everybody who is not taking the vaccine are those that were anti-mask. It's a large group of them, but that is not the only ones not taking the vaccine. I know several people that, or I should say a couple. I know a couple of people that do everything else they're supposed to. They wear the mask like they're supposed to. They wash, and they use hand sanitizer, and they do everything else they're supposed to. But they're just not comfortable with the speed that the vaccine came through. And I think I understand it to some degree, because first off, look who was initially the head of trying to push this through and everything. That certain people were a bit concerned about that. The science says it's fine, but that doesn't mean that, it doesn't, people don't have those concerns. And unfortunately, because of last year and how politicized health and how health was politicized so badly last year. And I think that is another problem with this, and something that needs to be discussed is the fact that it's one thing to disagree on certain things politically, how best to govern a nation or whatever. I'm fine with that debate. What should never be in question is scientific debate when it comes to, we've talked about the environment, we've talked about, healthcare and stuff like that. That should never be politicized. And it's gotten
that was
more.
a really interesting part of the conversation last night, because some of these people were very right wing, but they're friends of mine, and we could agree, to treat each other with kindness. And we were having all this really deep discussion about, COVID and vaccines and how the different vaccines worked and why people wouldn't get them. And it did come down to a morality challenge and issue of, protecting other people with minimal risk to yourself, and having, not making that decision. Why would you decide not to, out of obstinance or just not caring about anyone but yourself? And there's some really weirdly alarming numbers that I've been coming across, with apparently like 76% of the new unvaxxed cases happen to be white Republican males. And here's my surprised face. It's unfortunate. I don't like to make broad general morality calls, but the data's there. And then there's things about our underserved population and healthcare that are a really big deal, because the mortality rates for people in the mental health sector who undergo that kind of care is very, very high. Mm-hmm. It's kind of an inside source I found today because of someone I know who works in healthcare. But the mortality rates among the mentally ill and addicts and stuff is over 70%. Which compared to 0.01%, 0.02%, like normal COVID mortality rates, is insane. And it says things morally about our country and how we treat healthcare. And we're stuck in that because of all the rich white men that dominate our government not changing that. And it's the same kind of people that are, have been saying don't get vaccinated until very recently.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, you had Mitch McConnell come out and say you need to get vaccinated. You had Sean Hannity coming out and saying, it's your choice, but it would probably be better if you get vaccinated, because he has to walk this line. And even doing that, he still got blasted on his, from his audience for kowtow, for quote unquote kowtowing to the libs and stuff like that. And that's the thing is that this didn't have to be political. This shouldn't have been political. I think back to, or I think what would have been like if these people were in charge, and if we were in the society that we are now, back when the polio vaccine happened and came through. How many more children would have ended up with polio, or adults ended up with polio that normally wouldn't, that because of that vaccine didn't? But if the mindset was the similar mindset it was back then, I mean, now that yeah, you know what I mean. How many people wouldn't have had their kids vaccinated? And that is thoroughly disgusting.
And people have a very strong misunderstanding about vaccinations. They have this exposure to, well, I got the flu vaccine and then I got the flu anyway because of variants, and they don't understand that getting the vaccine still gives us a head start on
Right.
controlling variants. And this is the kind of thing, because COVID mutates so quickly that the more we vaccinate against the strain, the more variants we can get under control. There's probably going to be boosters, and it can't predict you. It's some of it because of the mRNA vaccines, the way they're developed a little differently. Um, like the Pfizer and the not the Johnson and Johnson, the Pfizer and the Moderna are both showing effectiveness against variants as well.
Right.
So I won't be surprised to see flu vaccines targeted a little differently um, in the future too. Like, this is great science. I mean, people don't understand terms like emergency use, and they think that's just experimental, and all this paranoia is doing damage to a system that is proving to work. It is protecting people, and but when the variants hit every single person and there's too many that aren't vaccinated, we're not going to have time to develop the boosters while those people are dying.
Yeah. I know. And that's where I wrote something on my personal Facebook page, and this is how people ask me how I can be a person of faith and still have my belief, quote unquote, for a lack of a better term, in science. And I say it this way: God, this is my faith, and I'm not trying to push it on you. This is just so I can explain it, especially as we're talking to people of faith. God gave us the ability to reason and the ability to think and create. And all of the creations, one of the things that God allowed us to create was science, so we could understand the outside world as well as our own bodies, as well as we possibly can. And there are still mysteries of both. There are still mysteries on this planet that we do not understand completely. And that's fine. But science is a gift as well. It is part of the abilities that was given to us. And if you shun that, if you say, oh, Jesus is going to protect me from the disease, he already has. He gave you science. It's that whole saying, it's that old story of there is flooding coming, and this guy was in his house, and the floodwater started to rise, and a boat came by and says, come on, get inside. We'll get you to safety. And he said, God will protect me. God will save me. And then the water got to the second floor, and another boat came by and said, get in, we'll get you to safety. And he says, God will save me. And then finally he's on the roof of his house. It's gotten to the roof of his house. And a helicopter comes by and drops a line and says, grab the rope, we'll get you to safety. And he continues to say, God will save me. The man drowns, and he goes to heaven. And he's like, God, why didn't you save me? And God says, I sent you 2 boats and a helicopter. I tried to save you. That's the point. That's the point with the science.
Mm-hmm.
Is science is trying to save you. And I have seen so many of this. Jesus's blood will protect me from the virus. Yeah, it's called science. Get the shot. I don't understand why it is so complicated and so difficult for Christians. Science doesn't deny God. It doesn't not deny God. It's just empirical evidence. You can still believe that God created the heavens and the earth and still believe in the Big Bang Theory without it being intelligent design. Just be it's how I look at all of this scientifically is that God created the laws of nature, set them in motion, and then let it ride. Because that's he knew what the outcome would be because he created the rules. The Big Bang Theory, the Big Bang would not have happened if it was not this confluence of, and that's the wrong word, and I apologize. This of expanding at a certain speed where it wouldn't cool off too soon, or wouldn't cool off, or would cool off later than it needed to. It was this perfect spreading and cooling that caused the cosmos to work. That if it was off by 1 degree one way or the other, it would not have happened the way it did.
It's magic.
So
Just magic.
What?
It was all magic. Poof.
Yeah. It's all magic. So, but I mean, but it's one of those things where that's what frustrates me the most is about this, especially the Christian side of it. It's like, oh, I don't need the shot because it's, the work of I have seen so many of these, and I know they're anecdotal, but as so many of these people talking about how, this is the work of the devil and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, no, it's not. I don't know what preacher you're listening to, but stop it, because obviously they're bad for you.
Okay.
You have the religious side, and then you had the political side, where we had a leader of the free world, or leader of the United States, who could not admit he was wrong, and made this political to the point where his followers would refuse those 2 boats and that helicopter because they believed Donald Trump's plane would be coming along anytime. It's the same kind of theory. And because of that, there's been polls where it's going to be nearly impossible to get those individuals to ever get vaccinated. And I knew it was going to be a problem. Unless, like I said, the state of New York is already doing this. I'm expecting other states to do this, to be like, okay, fine. And you didn't want, and here's the thing, you didn't want a vaccination passport, then you should have got the vaccination. Now that we're having to deal with this, welcome to vaccination passports. You want to go to a concert, you want to go to a movie theater, you want to, fly on an airplane, whatever it takes, you need to prove that you've had your vaccination. Because at this point, those of us who have done what we're supposed to do are tired of you not doing what you're supposed to do. And we are not going to be punished for what you've done.
Part of the social contract. We've talked about that many times.
Yeah.
All the things you endure and agree to, so that you can participate in society with other people. Now we just have an added list of things because there's a dangerous virus out there. And we're all in this together. And I wish people would approach it that way.
No, it's about your freedoms, and you know that. It's about my freedom to not wear a mask and to cough on other people. And and my father told me this is like, your rights and your freedoms stop at the end of somebody else's nose. And that's I know we're talking a lot about the people and everything else, but the science backs this up. That's why we read those numbers. I checked at 3 different sources, which will be in our notes. Of the vaccination and the breakthrough. Yes, there are breakthroughs. Most of them are elderly individuals. It's like 74% of the breakthroughs are people 65 and older. They are most likely going to have a booster shot before the rest of us. But on the same thing, the breakthroughs are so small of an amount of the new cases. And your friend was talking about masks and how they work. Masks aren't perfect. You are right. But what masks do, which is the big thing, is it reduces the viral load that you are in contact with, that you get into your body. And when you reduce that viral load, at that point, even if you end up with COVID, it's not nearly as sustainable or as hard as if you were without a mask and got the full viral load of wherever you were. And the other thing, you said he was an EMT worker. How many of those individuals that he dealt with on a day-to-day basis, had COVID or was coming off of COVID or whatever when he was taking and dealing with them? At that point, he was getting such a viral load that sometimes it's inevitable, unless you are just in like hazmat suits, because you can only do so much. But as an average individual, as an average person, the likelihood of you getting enough of a viral load to cause you to develop COVID, if you're wearing a mask and if you're vaccinated, the science has proven this, is 0.001%. It is minuscule.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of misinformation out there too that's driving me crazy, and especially even among professionals, I've heard this. There's a lot of this like, well, I had it and then I didn't have it anymore, and then this other person, they died of it, but then they tested that they were actually negative when they died of it. What they actually died from was, complications or pneumonia or whatever, and it really made me cringe. Because,
Right.
this is like a medical professional, and I didn't want to argue with them on that, but I was like, no. It's still, so they were diabetic, so they, had autoimmune, so they, whatever, had respiratory issues to begin with, because they end up dying of pneumonia, but COVID is what led them, put them on their way and their path downhill. It doesn't mean it wasn't COVID. Like, oh, they're just claiming it's COVID so they can get money at the hospital. No. And what that reminds me of is the AIDS epidemic in the early days. Because there was so much just denial of, oh, well, they didn't really die of AIDS. It was pneumonia. It was, all the different, things that you became susceptible to when your immune system quit working. And
Right.
we're finding out more and more about COVID and how it damages hearts, lungs, brains, may have blood disease, it triggered blood disease in people. You don't just say, well, it wasn't really COVID. That's insane level of denial that is very dangerous to me.
Right. No, and when you were talking about that, the AIDS epidemic, because no one died of AIDS. All AIDS, what AIDS would do was break down your immune system, so you would die of what would normally be a common cold or whatever. It would be that bad for someone who had AIDS.
I mean, I think
So,
we're going to see a lot more of that language change in the future with COVID, where it's COVID-related death,
right. And
because
I
of
think
how
that's,
many
but
different ways it's killing people.
for younger people, some younger people, it's a stroke that kills them, or an aneurysm or something, because it just clots up the blood and everything else the COVID does. And it, for younger people versus someone who's older, and it may be respiratory or a heart problem. So, and that's why, and luckily for, you, your children are of age where they can get a shot,
Yep,
where,
they're both fully vaxxed.
where, and that I know that's a huge weight off of you.
Yep, and I'm still going to make my youngest a bunch of new masks for school.
Yeah. And
Meanwhile, some parents are asking for a Plan D, which is the full remote option that the schools don't have in place right now, but it's starting to look like they're going to have one because of this rise in cases. But some of these parents are asking for it just because they don't agree with masking their children. And that makes me grouchy.
No, well, I can imagine so. It would make me grouchy too. I'm like, no,
Like,
no, no, no.
you are exactly the problem. Why we're having this problem still, lady.
Uh, and it's like a lot of people are like, well, you shouldn't make it mandatory for kids to get vaccinated. Excuse me, before I could get into kindergarten, I had to have a certain level of vaccinations done. And, in like junior high, I had to have, like, I think it was a TB booster or something like that. I don't know. It's been a while. There's been a lot
My
of
son
head
just had to
trauma.
get vaccinations to do his senior year of high school.
Yeah. You have to submit that to college anyways. They're not going to let you if you on campus if you don't have these vaccinations. And that's the thing, is that these kids, these parents are like, well, you shouldn't mandatory vaccination for kids. Oh yes, you should. Yeah, I never
And for the
understood
kids
that
that
argument.
can't, I mean, because it's not approved for them that young yet. And I can see that because, I mean, you don't want to short circuit the immune system super young anyway until you have more data. But how
Well,
do you feel?
I was talking about those that were like 12 and older that can get the
Right,
vaccine.
right. But a lot of the argument I'm seeing is for like little kids can't keep masks on, but I see evidence every day that's not true. I've seen plenty of kids like you normalize it. You wear a mask, your kid wears a mask. It can be fun. Um, I mean, they've been doing it for Halloween, right?
Yeah,
But how do you feel about this religious exemption stuff? Because
I
that's
don't.
really irritating to me. I don't understand. I mean, if you do have some kind of, you're in a religion where they are, you can't have blood transfusions, you can't have this, you can't have that, um, and refusing vaccination on that. But I mean, you should also just homeschool and grow your own shit. You're not
Yeah,
participating fully in society. But people,
I
I feel like most people just use it because they can and they don't want to get vaccinated. And how strangely immoral is that to exploit your own proposed religion in that manner?
I I disagree with it completely. And hold on a second. I'm looking up something here. I'm trying to, anyways. Um,
Like
I could
how does their brain get there to I'm going to value my freedom to not do something uncomfortable and go ahead and risk people's lives and use my religion as an excuse. How do you get there and call yourself, I don't know, good Christian or, whatever religion you are? I don't
this is
understand
the
it. Isn't
go
the
ahead.
purpose of all this dogma and all these religion and all these rules to try and be a better person?
Hmm. But you have to look at it. There are churches that have no problem with max mandates and no problem with um with all of with mass mandates or vaccinations or doing only Skype or whatever services like they did last year and everything else. There were a lot of churches that had no problems with it. But there are churches or have drive-through services, where everybody sits in their car. Um, but there is a segment of the which are the evangelicals, the fundamentalists. These are the same individuals that also believe in the prosperity doctrine. Um, Try to say that three times fast, Daniel. Um, that so they're already off the track anyways with that doctrine, and it doesn't take much to stay off the track. You know that because you're not giving money to the poor or whatever, because God has blessed you with money because you are a good servant. And I have never understood that either, especially with all of the teachings in the Bible, you know. So I don't get it. And it's like I've seen pictures and I wanted to see if they were valid or not, but I have seen pictures of the Amish when they are going into town or whatever wearing masks in Pennsylvania and stuff like that. So I was trying to validate, I couldn't find it quick enough. But I was trying to validate that. If the Amish are saying, okay, we're going to wear masks because, there's a chance we could get COVID, and these are individuals that don't even do electricity, then at that
Mm-hmm.
point, you really can't use. Now, have they been vaccinated? Probably not. I don't know how that works in their culture. But I do know that they believe enough in science to at least wear masks and do what you're supposed to do, when you're out in public. At least that's, again, anecdotal. I'd only seen a couple of pictures. I have no like proof,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, in front of me. It should not be a case.
Hey, Daniel, I
If
hate to ask, but can we move along and let people rely on the information that you did all that fantastic research?
Yeah,
Um,
sorry.
but it's really hard for me, only hearing about half what you're saying, to
I apologize.
participate uh, effectively in this conversation. And I'll do the best I can stitching things together. Hopefully, it sounds good in the recording. Um,
Okay. Yeah, so we're going to move
and I'll
along. I
fix it before next
apologize. We're
time.
having some technical issues tonight, and we'll get those resolved. So we're going to do this. We're going to go
Spectrum.
ahead and move to Carrot and Stick. We'll have all this information on the web, in our notes and stuff of all the research that's been done for this. But just on the religious side, no. Real quick, if you are somebody of faith, you should be willing to wear a mask, at least willing to wear a mask and do everything you're supposed to on a social level. If you disagree with the vaccine, fine, but you should at least be willing to do everything on the social level to protect your fellow man. And that's all I got to say about that, because that's what God would want you to do. So, carrot and stick.
Well, and I say just get vaccinated. I don't see any religious exemption that actually makes any sense. Um, okay, so Carrot. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on Tuesday issued a fresh stop on certain evictions. So we have an eviction moratorium again, saying that, of course, evicting people could be detrimental to public health and interfere with efforts to slow the pandemic again. The new moratorium comes after Joe Biden and his administration allowed a previous freeze to expire, unfortunately. And, yeah, shouldn't have done that. But the new ban applies to areas of the country where higher substantial transmission of COVID-19 is happening and will last until October 3rd. So, yeah, people can't very well quarantine or isolate or social distance when they are being evicted. So, kudos. I think it never should have expired. I don't think we were out of the woods and we jumped the gun letting that expire, but thank you.
Yeah, I agree to that. And the stick goes to a church in Maine who was basically trying to block the state from enacting or reinstating COVID restrictions in the wake of the Delta variant. And the Supreme Court said, no. That there's, first off, the main reason is there's not anything there. And second of all, it was premature because there's no actual mass mandate. And even if it was, that's not something that they could really get into, because it's the Supreme Court said basically, Breyers basically said it's not that big of a deal, wear a mask. So that exemption, as far as that particular setup, has been shot down, which is a good thing. But it's the whole churches not wanting to wear masks while you're in service. It's not that big of a deal. God can still hear your prayers even if you have a mask on. So he can hear your singing even if you have a mask on. Move on. Just wear the mask. So churches, especially that main church, but churches in general who want to fight that, you get a stick for wanting to not wear a mask to protect, your parishioners. So with that, we're going to end tonight's show, and I want to thank you for joining Heresy and Hearsay. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me on Twitter at SethRothII. You can follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and any podcast catcher as well, just as well as our website. Just Google us. Don't forget our Patreon page, where $2 a month can keep us going.
And I'm September. You can follow me on Twitch and Twitter at 9 of 12. That's NINEOF12. And you can hear me on the Geek Grills podcast. Thanks for listening today, folks, and bless your hearts.